The question, if I understand it, is how do you, in this smallest amount of words, summarize the essence of Immanuel Kant's moral theory? I smile. Kant? No way! You can't summarize Kant. That's not. Okay, I'll try. It's not going to be easy. You're talking about Immanuel Kant, big man. Some people think he's as big as Plato, and Plato is considered our greatest genius, the greatest philosopher. Okay, and some think that Kant, if Plato represents the 100% mark, Kant is the 95% mark. That's how significant and deep are his thoughts. And no small feat in ethics either. There's a lot of things to talk about in his moral view. A lot of details. You got to study him in detail. But if I wanted to summarize and try to get you to understand what he called the categorical imperative or the moral law, okay, I could do that. I think I can do that. First, broadly speaking, we know he's a deontologist. He believes to get morality in the world, it's not about who you are, but what you do. You got to do the right thing. But what is the right thing? Kant described the right thing as the categorical imperative. Categorical imperative. Something that is true within a certain category. And what's the category? Human behavior within the social order. The easiest way to understand when something is categorically correct, without developing all of Kant's theory now, is to consider the modern application of modeling, computer modeling. We're tracking a hurricane. We don't just track the hurricane out there. We also track it on the computer. We generate a theoretical model, and then we feed that model current data, and then we can see where the hurricane is going to be traveling. These models are very effective in giving us an approximate sense of where the hurricane is going next. Inside the computer, we have put in all the features of wind and temperature and pressure. We can generate an ideal or any version of we would like inside the computer. It's not real. Then we put current data and we see where the model is going, so that tells us where the real hurricane is going. Kant was a deep thinker. He was a genius. He thought the same thing. He modeled human behavior. He modeled human society. Think of him as a human computer. People who fail to undo this fail to understand Immanuel Kant. So he created a model. He called this the kingdom of ends, an ideal society, just like in a computer. He said, how are humans? Humans are rational, willful, and autonomous. They can reason, they are willful, they have willpower, and they are autonomous. They have freedom, a sense of freedom at least. And if you consider all humans having these same features, okay, and they were all in the world that's fully functional, where you have airports, nurses, doctors, teachers, taxi drivers, mothers and fathers, sons and daughters. You have a functioning society. In order for a society to function well, it has to have certain rules that's followed, certain kind of principles that follow, certain laws that's followed. That's the way human behavior seems to be. That we need rules to have organized activities. So society is an organized activity. I'm giving the structure of Kant's thinking. The minute you say society, you are accepting the idea of organized activities, which require certain rules agreed upon. Okay? So you have this functioning society. Kant says, if you want to contemplate an act of morality, don't do it in your present world, where some people are doing good, some people are not doing good. Imagine yourself in this ideal world, another world, this theoretical model of human society, and ask yourself, how should people behave in that world? Can people go, for example, lie to each other in that world, and the world continue to function normally? If you do that, you'll see the whole world will fall apart. The computer's simulation you have would fall apart. Boom. So he says, if you come into this real world and you lie, even though you might get away with it, in the long run, if everybody did the exact same thing, the whole society would fall apart, just like in the model, just like in the kingdom of ends. So he would then argue that lying is not a categorical imperative. It's not something that you should do in this real, actual world. Because in the ideal world, not everybody can do it. Because if they did, the society would fall apart. So what makes something categorically true is something that everyone in the ideal world would do if they were in the exact same position. That's made categorically true. So it becomes a human law, a moral law, and even goes so far as that even though you look in the ideal world, you see the act, and you come to this world, and most or hardly anyone's engaged in that act here in this world, that is still the right thing to do. The right thing to do is the right thing to do because that's the way it ought to occur in the ideally conceived world. That's the what you should do in this world. That's not so ideal. So this act is called the categorical imperative. Any act that ought to be done in the ideal world. Here are formulations of the categorical imperative. Act only on that maxim whereby you can at the same time will it should become a universal law of nature. Act only on that maxim, that personal statement of action, whereby you can at the same time will it can become a universal law of nature. Universal law of nature means in the ideal world, the kingdom of ends. It can be true for everyone, like, an object falling because of the force of gravity. Everyone has to do that. All objects have to fall that way. Similarly, if you could force rules on the people, then they would have to do it. But as Kant writes, morality generates rules that people should follow if they want an ideal world, if they want the social world to conclude, to pursue, continue in the right way. It's clear for me what Kant is saying. And this ideal conception is very Platonic, because you think of an ideal world, and Plato was an idealist, and Kant had the same framework. And many people believe that somehow Kant is talking about real people in this ideal world. Really, he's not. He's considering ideally conceived people. And it is a good framework for doing morality. In my world, I think Kant nails it on target. He actually identified how to clearly denote what's a moral act. Truth-telling is good because in the ideal world, in that particular circumstance, in an ordinary situation, you would tell the truth. It doesn't mean you always tell the truth. Every situation requires you to do another evaluation, all right? If a good person is confronted by an evil person and asked a question, and the question will have the negative consequences of hurting a lot of people, okay? Where do you hide the code for nuclear weapons, huh? So if you tell this person that, he's going to find the codes and blow people up. Well, in that moment, you don't say you lie. You got to put it in the categorical imperative. Ought you to lie? Ought you to distract this person and rather than tell them the truth? And that's exactly what Kant says. And I believe if you apply the Kantian imperative, you will see in that situation, you ought to lie or misguide that person. Okay? Lying, remember, is only wrong because it disrupts the functionality of the social order. In this case, lying would preserve the functionality of the social order. These are extreme situations. Extreme situation requires a delicate application of the categorical imperative. Many people fail to see this because they want to look at only the simple application. In complex situations, you must reapply the categorical imperative. The categorical imperative doesn't say to always tell the truth, always keep your promises, always be fair in business. It says to maintain the social order in the ideal world in the kingdom of ends. Any act that you must engage in that allow that society to continue functioning and functioning well, that is the morally correct act.